transgenic foods. You think you eat healthily? You're against genetically manipulated foods? Just like you, more than 70% of European citizens say no to transgenic foods. Still, you too have long since eaten transgenic foods without even knowing. For example, 70% of worldwide soy production is already genetically modified. Such plants are being produced by the introduction of foreign genes. In this way, two main new characteristics emerge. Either the plants are resistant to phytotoxins, or they produce toxins themselves which kill pests and other animals. These plants then spread uncontrollably as wind and insects disseminate the pollen. 90% of all genetically modified plants are cultivated in America and exported to Europe on a grand scale. All in all, 80% of all transgenic plants are being processed for pet food and are largely fed to production animals. In this way, genetically modified organisms end up in your food too. Legally though, this does not need to be labelled on meat, eggs and milk products. Perhaps you're wondering whether this is dangerous at all. Well, there are already animal studies which document verifiable health consequences. And what's bad for animals can become dangerous for humans too. It's just that no long-term studies have been conducted on this up till now. But wait, we are all part of the long-term study already. And we are all the guinea pigs of the big agricultural companies. So this concerns us all. Our world is no experimental laboratory. Stop genetic manipulation. There are a lot more risks.
Genetically engineered crops in agriculture, a worldwide experiment on people, animals and nature. Cultivation of genetically engineered crops like soy, maize, cotton or canola have far-reaching consequences. 90% of genetically engineered crops belong to the corporate agricultural group Monsanto. The rest are owned by Syngenta, DuPont, Bayer and others. Genetic manipulation of crops can have uncontrollable consequences. The function of genomes is only partially understood. But foreign genes are still introduced into crops. These genetically engineered crops are widely cultivated outdoors, where they cannot be controlled. Currently, 90% of GE cultivation occurs in the Americas, particularly in the USA, Argentina, Brazil, and Canada. It seems researchers have forgotten that genetically engineered crops once outside can no longer be controlled like they could in the lab. GE crops can self-replicate and pass on their new characteristics to neighboring crops, penetrating the fields of farmers who want to cultivate their crops without genetic engineering. Adverts from the genetic engineering lobby claim genetically engineered crops produce higher yields, but this marketing mantra is a complete hoax. It has been shown that crop yields for GE crops are no higher than normal crops, but farmers must buy more expensive patented genetically engineered seeds each year. This forces them to become dependent on corporate giants. But that's not all. Genetic engineering giants also produce pesticides and herbicides. There are two characteristic traits of genetically engineered crops. They are either resistant to herbicides, in which case the genetic engineering company itself produces the suitable herbicide, or the genetically engineered crop emits an insecticide. Whether or not the crops are resistant to weed killer or give off poisonous gases, not only weeds or pests are eliminated, other beneficial field growth and some living creatures are killed as well. But nature adapts, so pests and weeds develop resistance to pesticides. And that means that increasing amounts of stronger pesticides will be used. Especially grave consequences are observed in this respect in monocultures. For example, in South America, rainforests and other natural landscapes are destroyed every day to make room for genetically engineered monocultures and pasture. At the same time, the soil and groundwater are poisoned. On top of that, the genetic engineering lobby claims genetically engineered crops can help to reduce world hunger. Genetic engineering is not the answer. There is enough food on Earth. The problem is that it's not distributed fairly. But the fact is that most genetically engineered crops find their way into the livestock chain, so they end up as meat or dairy products in supermarkets. Along with all the destructive effects on the environment, one last awkward question remains. How do genetically engineered crops affect humans and animals? The answer is, no one knows. Therefore, it's important for you to carefully consider which products you buy.
Genetic engineering is really a radical revolution in food production. It's really a cell invasion technology. You know, people have heard they're taking a flounder gene and putting it in tomato so the tomato can last in cold temperatures. But people can ask, how does that flounder gene get in that tomato? How does it get in there?
We will ensure that biotech products will receive the same oversight as other products, instead of being hampered by unnecessary regulation.
Patents historically have been for things like, I've used the example of a carburetor. Well, the carburetor doesn't get up one day and start replicating itself everywhere and introducing itself into your car, so that all of a sudden then you get sued for patent infringement.
Monsanto went on my land that I farmed without my knowledge, without my permission, and took plants or seeds and said some of that was Monsanto's Roundup Ready canola. In August the 6th of 1998, they launched a lawsuit against me.
I think this is probably the largest biological experiment humanity has ever entered into.
It's a funny world we live in.